This is Husker Sports with Sports Nightly. First, tonight's sports headlines.
Good evening, I'm Austin Norman. We'll start the hour off with today's headlines and scores. 8 Husker football players are suing the Big Ten Conference following the decision made on August 11th that postponed all fall sports in the conference. The lawsuit contends the decision to postpone should be overturned because the league didn't follow its established procedures in releasing information and because the decision was made based on misapplied medical information. According to Nebraska parents near the case, the purpose of filing the lawsuit is not to force the Big Ten to reverse its decision on fall sports, but rather to gain clarity on how the decision was reached. A day after players went on strike, the NBA said it plans to resume its playoffs either tomorrow or Saturday, meaning the 3 games slated for today are postponed. The WNBA and NHL have also postponed their games that were planned for today. We have a few finals to give you from Major League Baseball. In Game 1 of a doubleheader, the Padres topped the Mariners 10-7. Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado both homered for the Friars. It took 8 innings in Game 1 of a doubleheader, but the Pirates prevailed 4-3 over the Cardinals in St. Louis, and the Dodgers blanked the Giants 7-0 in the first game of a doubleheader in San Francisco. Games in progress right now. In the top of the 6th inning, it's the Reds leading the Brewers 5-0. Bottom of the first, it's 6-0 Mariners over the Padres, and there's no score through 1 inning between the Pirates and the Cardinals in Game 2 of that doubleheader. The BMW Championship is in progress in Olympia Fields, Illinois. In the first round, it's Tyler Duncan out in front. He's 2 under par through 17 holes. Tied for second are Mackenzie Hughes and Victor Hovland, as well as Abraham Anser and Hideki Matsuyama. Tony Finau finished his day even par, shooting a 70. Rory McIlroy also even through 17 holes. A few players sitting 1 shot over at par right now include Dustin Johnson, Joel Dahman, and Patrick Cantlay. Live inside the Husker Sports Network studios, I'm Austin Norman.
Your state, your team, your show. This is Sports Nightly.
4th and a half yard at the 6 of Colorado. Now it's going to be an empty set. Snap back. Adrian's going to run off the right side. He's in there for a first down. He's in there for a touchdown. Nebraska takes the lead back here at Folsom Field.
Now let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Ben McLaughlin.
Just another day in paradise, folks. Welcome to Sports Nightly here on a Thursday night. Hope you had a good day today. Another hot one outside today. Summer hanging on here at the latter part of August. We're glad you're with us here tonight. Busy show for you coming up over the next couple of hours. Nate Klaus going to join us later on this hour from HuskerOnline.com with the latest in Husker football recruiting and what the commitment last night from Thomas Fedoni means for Husker football moving forward. The outstanding tight end from Lewis Central High School in Council Bluffs. We'll have Nate coming up here in a couple of minutes. Hour number 2, Teddy Greenstein's going to join us from that BMW Championship in Chicago. He's been out covering that today. My goodness, that golf course is winning today. Sometimes the course wins, sometimes the players win. Today it's the course. Those guys are having a hard time playing Olympia Fields in Chicago. Today, Teddy will have the recap for that. We'll also get his thoughts about all the latest goings-ons in the Big Ten world. We're also going to talk some Oklahoma football in hour number 2. Ryan Aber from the Oklahoman is going to join us. OU getting ready for their season opener in just over 2 weeks against Missouri State. They've had a break out of COVID-19 cases, and it's hit, according to Lincoln Riley, one of their position groups pretty hard. We'll get the latest from Ryan in hour number 2. Hour 3, we'll have our face-off and our Flicks Picks of the week. And as always, phone lines are open for you. 531-500-4686. That also doubles up as our U.S. Cellular text line, 531-500-4686. 4686 U.S. Cellular, the official wireless provider of Husker Athletics. We'll start with the story Austin had in the ticker, and that was this lawsuit that 8 Nebraska football players have filed against the Big Ten seeking to reverse the canceled season. The 8 Huskers that did this are Garrett Snodgrass, Garrett Nelson, Jackson Hanna, Ethan Piper, Brant Banks, Noah Gates, Alante Brown, and Brig Banks, who is a long snapper. The suit claims that the Big Ten's arbitrary and capricious decision should be overturned because it didn't follow established guidelines. In the suit, it raises 3 counts against the conference: wrongful interference with business expectations, that the season represents an opportunity for players to work towards a career in football and develop their brands for name, image, likeness. 2, breach of contract by not holding an actual vote within its Council of Presidents and Chancellors. That's been debated, right? I mean, we've had several chancellors say, yeah, there was a vote. We've had the Minnesota chancellor said, no, I don't really think we took a vote. Finally, declaratory judgment by either not actually voting on the decision or being unable to produce evidence of a vote. This is a long shot. I saw one legal expert say they feel like this is a bit of a Hail Mary. Probably so. I salute the kids. I mean, it's not from the parents. It's the signees of this are the student athletes. And, Ben, if it's always about the student athletes and the best interests of student athletes, we hear that thrown back at us quite often. Well, here's some student athletes that are they're wanting some information. They're wanting some transparency from the league that just hasn't been there throughout the last couple of weeks throughout this whole decision. I applaud them. I don't expect this really to go anywhere. The Lancaster County judge gave the Big Ten 5 days to respond to this. Again, it's a Hail Mary. It's a long suit. But I applaud the players for going, we'd like a little bit more explanation. This comes, 6 days after a group of Big Ten parents showed up at the Big Ten offices and didn't get to talk to anybody. Nobody came out the doors to talk to the parents of these students. So I applaud the efforts, realizing that it's a really, really, really long shot. But hey, at least they're fighting along here a little bit.
I think the point is to just send a message. I think that's kind of the main goal here. I don't know that everybody involved are going to bed with any sort of expectation on this movement changing any type of course of action from the league. I don't know that is an expectation here, but more so to send a message to the Big Ten, and I don't know if this is intentional or not. Maybe it's just kind of a secondary benefit, but more just shaming of the league. I think to have that that public perception, to have this out there, to have the Big Ten have to allocate the resources, the time, and the money to this. This is something that they just can't ignore, Greg, and I think that's something that the Big Ten has done plenty of. Kevin Warren has done plenty of. Just ignore, just put to the side, not give it any time, not speak on it. This forces them to do something. I mean, at least it forces them to respond in some way, and to an extent, it worked. We got a statement today from the Big Ten, the council that they have, and they put together some information. And so even that was arguably more than we've heard from the commissioner today. So I think it's already starting to accomplish what it set out to, is just get some answers. And again, like this whole scenario could have been avoided if there's any type of leadership shown at the top. I mean, all of this could have been avoided, and Kevin Warren's just hiding out in a bunker somewhere thinking this is just going to go away, and it hasn't. I mean, I think with the decision, maybe the reaction 24, 48 hours of the public outcry, he knew he was going to get resistance from those that wanted to play, but there's no way he expected the parents or even maybe the coaches, the parents, and then the players to all kind of speak out on him and have it elongate this process to where he's kind of the lasers are pointing at him, whereas at first they were all pointing at Nebraska, and he was able to deflect and point the attention away from him. I was a little worried today, Greg, that Nebraska has been the butt of so many jokes and so much public ridicule from national writers. I kind of thought that would happen again, at least in terms of the fans. But everything I saw from national writers today that put out tweets, and I'm going to say quote-unquote reported on this, but I'll get to that in a second. But most of the comments I had, obviously Husker fans are going to support their athletes, but there was fans from about every team coming to the defense of Nebraska saying, good for them, I wish more people would do this, standing up to them, and it turned – I was afraid Nebraska would be kind of turned on again as evil, and it didn't come across that way at all. So I think people are kind of awake to the fact now that this isn't a Nebraska thing, it's a Big Ten thing. And when I say quote-unquote reported, I'm talking about Nicole Auerbach, who put out a tweet, and to a little backstory on this. She has been all about players, college players, speaking their mind, standing up for themselves, believing what's right. She's been pounding that drum, beating that drum for 2 months. You go all the way back to Chuba Hubbard and what he said at Oklahoma State with the racial injustice. She was all about that. And she's been all about the professional sports taking stands against social injustices today. So common sense would lead you to believe she's probably thinking the same thing. Here you have Nebraska players standing up for what they believe in. But no, it was the exact opposite. She posted that tweet with the response sigh to it when she found out that Nebraska players were putting this lawsuit together. So she's completely contradicted herself. She asked questions in subtweets after that clearly she had done no reporting on, because if she followed the situation at all, she could have answered her own questions with just some basic research. So, again, I think you have another situation of a national writer. Here you've got the senior writer for The Athletic trying to turn this on Nebraska as a negative thing, and it completely flopped in her face. I mean, every comment directed towards her was about how much she had contradicted herself over the last few months. So the public shaming from the national media, I think, has completely evaporated, even though you still have national writers that are clearly clueless to the situation. I mean, she clearly has no idea what's going on behind the scenes or even in the public eye at the University of Nebraska, or she wouldn't have tweeted that or asked herself those questions about business opportunities. So bottom line here, my point is, I'm glad that this didn't turn into a public bashing of Nebraska again, when you have these kids that are trying to speak their mind and say how they feel and take some steps against, people of power. So I don't think future players at Nebraska or anywhere in the Big Ten are going to feel like they'll be attacked. I don't think that this is a bad precedent to set because of the success that happened today, at least in the public eye. I mean, if you're dealing with public shaming, you're going to sit on your hands and not want to fight back. But who knows? Maybe with all of this, you're going to have some other players elsewhere that wants to do the same thing. And again, Greg, this all comes back to just give us some transparency. Give us something. Just give us some answers. And it's not really that hard. All of this could have been avoided, and instead it hasn't. So another tough day for the Big Ten Conference and Kevin Warren.
Yeah, I think part of the reason, and I said it off the top, that there hasn't been a ton of blowback on Nebraska today is because it is a student-driven lawsuit. It's not from their parents, it's students. Kind of hard to bash students if you cover college sports. You bash students, whoa, you've kind of crossed a line. And so I think that's why a lot of these people nationally have had to kind of back up a little bit here. You mentioned the Big Ten did have a statement. They put out a statement after this lawsuit was filed. They said, quote, "We share the disappointment that some student-athletes and their families are feeling. However, this lawsuit has no merit, and we will defend the decision to protect all student-athletes as we navigate through this global pandemic. We are actively considering options to get back to competition and look forward to doing so when it is safe to play." So that was their official statement after this got filed in court today. The Big Ten's lawyer on the call in the courtroom today basically said Freedom of Information Act does not apply here. That doesn't work here. I kind of wonder, really? I mean, the Big Ten is made up of 13 public institutions where public money is listed. I kind of think there's got to be a little bit of freedom of information that's got to be provided by the league. That's what the legalese will get in the mud about. But again, I'm proud of these guys for doing it. I don't really expect much out of it, but I'm proud of them for sticking their neck out there and doing this today. Speaking of student athletes, Husker basketball gathered today and called kind of a quasi press conference outside the Hendricks Center today, where they wanted to make a comment about social justice from the men's basketball team. What they did was they came out one by one, and they basically said, "I support social justice in the name of," and it was somebody who had been affected by police brutality or being not given their social justice means. And then you had a couple players, including Teddy Allen, that did talk for a few minutes about the way they are thinking and feeling. Here's a clip from what Teddy Allen, the new player for the Huskers from originally up in Omaha, the Boys Town area, had to say today.
There's no denying that we have different stories and backgrounds. We all have moments in our lives where we have had to overcome something, but the color of my skin is different, putting me at a higher risk. We are tired of talking about the same things over and over while losing precious lives along the way. Are we fighting a pointless fight? How many more hashtags need to be created by the police for people to start caring? We cannot only care when it's convenient. We cannot only care when it impacts us directly. Caring about someone else's life should fall within basic human ideals. We are standing here together as black and white people, making it clear that we are sickened by the events taking place in our country involving police brutality and systematic injustices toward our black people. We want to play a role in change, and we want you all to join us. No more hashtags, only change.
Again, Teddy Allen, a new member of this Husker basketball team. Kobe Webster was another one that spoke for a little bit more of an extended period of time than just coming out and basically saying we support social justice, and then a name that they threw out. Pretty powerful scene. The guys came out one at a time in front of the Hendricks Center, went to the podium, said their line, stood over to the side, and then the next teammate came out. It was pretty powerful, and those are some well-spoken words by Teddy Allen, a guy that I've not had a chance to meet yet. He's been on campus for a while, but we're not around the athletes right now because of the pandemic. But I thought it was a nice show of solidarity by the Husker basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was well organized, and to have two new players in Kobe Webster and Teddy Allen be kind of the spokesman on this, I thought was great. Coach Hoiberg is always going to stick up for his players, and this isn't anything new to Nebraska basketball. You think back to the time when Tim Miles was the head coach, and there was some hate speech on the university campus here in Lincoln, and how the basketball team was one of the first groups to stand up against the hate speech that was put out against blacks and black students on the campus, and that's when they came out with the shirts "Hate Will Never Win," and that's never really left the locker room, even though those players and those coaches have. So I applaud them again for using their platform and sticking up for what they believe in. Obviously, Coach Hoiberg, knowing that he has black student athletes on his team that this is going to affect in certain ways. You think about a guy like Teddy Allen, Greg, who has had a really rough upbringing in childhood, and I think his path to Nebraska is pretty well documented. He's been through a lot, and there are a lot of players that have been through a lot, and this affects them. This affects them to a point that I don't understand, being a white male. But the fact of the matter is that they were able to use their voice today, and to have some white players stand shoulder to shoulder with their black teammates, I think says a lot too with the unification of this team, and you hope that it can kind of bond them together. But we're seeing this all over the sporting landscape. It is in college basketball. College football had practices that weren't attended today. Obviously, the NBA had the big player meeting today. They're going to take a couple days off. The National Hockey League isn't playing today. Just a few moments ago in the Mets-Marlins game, Rob Manfred tried to convince the Mets and Marlins to play. You hear a Mets executive saying, "We don't want to play. We're not going to play." So what did they do? They took the field, 42-second moment of silence. You had a Marlins hitter place a shirt on top of home plate after the 42-second moment of silence, and both teams walked off the field. So you're seeing this all across sports, and I hope the message is received. I'm not sure what's the next step with the postponements and the boycotts, but let's hope that the message is received, and we can get the ball rolling on some of these issues. But you're seeing it from about every organized athletic association the last 24 hours getting involved.
Kind of wonder if we're at a bit of a crossroads for the future of sports, both professionally and collegiately. Maybe that's overstating it. Maybe it's not. But we have not seen this type of cancellations, postponements for anything, really, other than in 9/11, and we were at war for a while in this country, and then the pandemic shut everything down. So it's just – we just seem like we're living in really interesting, different times now than at any other time in my lifetime with this going on, and it's going to be it's going to be fascinating to follow. The NBA did vote earlier today, as you said, to resume their playoffs. Not sure if it's going to start up again tomorrow or on Saturday. NHL pausing tonight and tomorrow. Major League Baseball, a lot of the teams that went ahead and played yesterday are the ones that are taking today off. A lot of the ones that took yesterday off in their protests back playing today and doing doubleheaders across the country. So you do have about half the league playing here today. All right, a lot on the plate, a lot of heavy stuff, I know. When we come back, we'll lighten the mood a little bit with some good news with Husker football recruiting. Nate Klaus of HuskerOnline.com will join us. We'll talk about the commitment late last night from Thomas Fidone, the terrific tight end from Council Bluffs. We'll have that coming up next. Back Sports Nightly Thursday night here on the Husker Sports Network. Kind of a week where your head's just been spinning, right? Well, it spun in the right direction for all Husker fans last night with the commitment of Thomas Fidone, the outstanding tight end from Council Bluffs, and none better to talk about that and other things than Nate Klaus from HuskerOnline.com. Good evening, Nate. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been very busy, which is always good.
Let's go back to last night. Big night for the Huskers with Thomas Fidone, the outstanding tight end from Lewis Central and Council Bluffs. What kind of get is this for the Big Red?
It's huge, and I hate to say that a recruiting class really comes down to one individual, because it definitely that's never necessarily the case. But I think that you could make an argument that Thomas Fidone was most certainly, I think at the very least, one of those kids that you put into that must-get type of category. I think this is a monster get for Nebraska. Not only do they need tight ends, I think having not signed a tight end last year and the year before that, the tight end they signed in Chris Hickman has kind of made that transition to wide receiver. So you're looking at kind of a hole on the tight end roster. So that was a position of need. He's just right down the road in Council Bluffs, with about an hour's drive of Lincoln, and grew up a Husker fan, and all that's before you get to, his overall athleticism, his game-changing type of ability at 6'5", 225 pounds, running a 4.6 electronic 40, 37-inch vertical, tremendous hands, and then his competitive spirit, his leadership. He's intelligent. I mean, he's the total package. And so I think that as this class kind of progressed, he was always right at the top of the board, and I do think that he was going to be someone that could either really elevate this class to the next level, or somebody that we'd look back and say, man, that class was good, but it could have been really, really special with a guy like Thomas Fidone. So he was a monster pickup for Scott Frost and the Huskers last night.
Nate, 40 schools, 40 offers for him, big-name schools. I mean, Michigan, LSU were kind of amongst his final choices for this thing. How did Nebraska pull it off? What formula did they use in this thing?
Yeah, he had every offer under the sun, basically. And I think that, the formula was consistency and relationships. Now, he grew up a Husker fan, and so I think right then and there, Nebraska had a little bit of they had their foot in the door to begin with. But it was the consistency of which they were communicating with him, and just those relationships that they were able to build with him and his family that at the end of the day, I think really turned the tide towards Nebraska. I think you have to give Scott Frost an awful lot of credit. I mean, he personally was recruiting Thomas Fidone. It wasn't only when Thomas would make a visit or once a month he would get on the phone with Scott Frost. This was like a daily deal where he and Scott Frost were talking, and then Sean Beckton too. I mean, he had developed a tremendous relationship with the Huskers tight end coach, and that was crucial because there's been a lot of talk about Nebraska wanting to kind of get more production out of the tight end position, and like I touched on earlier, that was a position of great need, and so I think it was a big deal for Thomas to be able to really connect with Sean Beckton, which he did. And then Eric Chenander deserves some credit too. He's the one that recruits the state of Iowa for Nebraska, and now that Thomas Fidoni's in the boat, you're looking at 3 kids from Iowa that have now committed to Nebraska in 3 years in a row, where they've been able to pull at least one kid out of the state of Iowa. So Eric Chenander's doing a great job recruiting the Hawkeyes state.
Nate, have you seen him play in person?
I have not seen him play in person. I've seen him work out in person. I've seen him at some camp settings. He was at the Steve Warren Academy showcase there in July, so I was able to see him work out and basically kind of go through some 7-on-7 and some individual drills. Extremely impressive. In everything that he does. He runs routes like a wide receiver. He's got tremendous hands. Makes just the most ridiculous catches look pretty easy and routine. But I'm really excited to be able to actually watch him play in person in pads tomorrow. We're going to be at the game in Council Bluffs. The Lewis Central is taking on St. Albert. So I'm really excited to be able to see him in person tomorrow night.
Fantastic. Nate Klaus with us from HuskerOnline.com talking about the Thomas Fidoni commitment last night that we had late in our show. It happened right before we got signed off last night. What does that do to the class? And I'm guessing a guy that ballyhooed probably jumps the class up a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly did. Nebraska's recruiting class was ranked at 37th in the nation prior to Thomas Fidoni's commitment, and his addition alone jumped them up to 23rd in the nation last time I checked. So, you're talking a 14-point or 14 position jump there just by adding him alone to the class, which isn't a huge surprise. I mean, he's the number 46 overall recruit in the country, regardless of position. Really, just one notch below being a 5-star prospect. So, a player like that is going to certainly carry a lot of weight. Now, as far as the tight end position, I think that Nebraska is going to want to add at least one more, maybe even 2 more, in addition to Thomas Fidoni. As they kind of get closer and closer to closing this class out, because it is going to be a little bit smaller than what we've come accustomed to them signing here over the past couple of years. And, with his addition, they're sitting at 16 overall commits for the 2021 class.
Nate, he's the second Omaha metro area kid to pick Nebraska this week. Kobe Brett's the other one from Omaha West Side. What about Kobe? What do you think attracted Nebraska to him?
Well, yeah, this is another really solid addition for Nebraska. And it's not too often that you see a kid who's, he's 6'2", 6'3", 195 pounds, extremely athletic, but relatively new to the game of football. He's still kind of learning the game of football. He's a state champion diver. And that's not something that you hear too often about when you're talking football recruiting. A lot of times, we're talking about somebody being, a standout on the track or a standout wrestler or something like that. But he was a state champion diver, and to be able to dive at that level and be a champion at that level, you know that you've got tremendous body control, which he does, and he's an extremely physical football player. That's one thing that he's not learning is how to lay a hit on somebody. He plays safety for Westside, but I think he could potentially be somebody that eventually grows into an outside linebacker in Lincoln. Like I mentioned, he's pushing 6'3", already close to 200 pounds, and I think he's got the frame to continue to kind of grow and to keep filling out, similar to what we've seen in the past with like a Luke Gifford who played safety in high school, or even like a JoJo Doman or Isaac Gifford, who's on campus now, similar to that. But really, really good pickup. And his recruitment started a little slower, I believe, because he had a few issues, maybe a few things to clean up as far as his academic progress was concerned. But he put in a tremendous amount of work both last year to close things out in the second semester of last year and then throughout the summer. And I think after Nebraska saw that progress, that's all they needed to be able to go ahead and officially pull the trigger on offering him last Friday. And, of course, he committed first thing Monday morning.
Yeah, part of this class now at 16 for 2021. Well, high school football, as you mentioned, gets going really in earnest around the state tomorrow night. Will that slow things down for a while, or is there anything on the horizon that may be coming up for Husker to add to this 2021 class?
You know, I'll be honest. I think things could potentially speed up.
Wow.
Even with football starting up, I think that like I mentioned, this class of Nebraska's is going to be a little smaller than normal, and now those spots are starting to become a little bit more scarce. And so I do think that there's a handful of recruits that may have been on the fence, so to speak, that may see things tightening up and may want or may nudge them to go ahead and jump in the boat. Actually tonight I'm heading to Westside Creighton Prep, and I think one of those guys that could possibly be getting closer to making a decision is A.J. Rollins, the tight end out of Creighton Prep, 6'6", 200-pound tight end out of Creighton Prep. So I'm interested to see him and Kobe Brett's kind of go toe-to-toe tonight.
Very good. Well, liquid up a little bit. It's hot out there tonight. They may have to take some water breaks during that game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be hot wearing the mask on the sidelines. But luckily I'm not in the pads like the players are.
All right, you're a big White Sox fan. How about Lucas Giolito the other night? That was something, wasn't it?
Oh boy, I'm super bummed because I didn't get to see all of it because I was moving. But man, I couldn't be more excited about Lucas Giolito. And I mean, he had a great season last year and has really just kind of picked up where he left off. And of course, the White Sox are playing pretty darn well right now. So I'm super pumped about that.
I think it's going to be a good September race in that AL Central. Nate, we appreciate it. Have fun watching some high school games the next couple of days, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
There he is, Nate Klaus with HuskerOnline.com, joining us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Okay, phone lines back open again for you, 531-500-4686. If you have any thoughts about the lawsuit filed today by 8 Husker football players, what do you think about that? Is it just a waste of time? Are you proud of them for going through the efforts of this thing? Love to get your take on that, either with a call or a text at that very same number, 531-500-4686. Ben will rejoin me next. 531-500-4686, the number if you want to dial us up with a comment or question. Greg Sharp, Ben McLaughlin with you here on a Thursday night of Sports Night. Thanks to Nate Klaus for spending some time with us. Just checking Twitter, Nate said he's was walking in to go see Creighton Prep against Omaha Westside tonight. I've seen pictures on Twitter that they're warming up for Millard West, Elkhorn South tonight. Woo, going to be a little hot time on the football field tonight, Ben, until that sun goes down.
Our friend Michael Bruntz, good friend of the program, posted some photos of Elkhorn South warming up. Let's just say it's not hard to find Teddy Prochaska out there.
Can you find him? You see him?
Yeah. Not. It's like it's. And this is even on another level, but it was like watching the Husker offensive lineman warm up last year and trying to find Bryce Benhart. There's just one head, just one floating white head above everybody else. In this case, it might be 2 floating white heads. You look at his teammates like behind him in line, and you're like, imagine going up against all those dudes in practice, and just like being able to. It's like your little brother, just like picking him up and setting him to the side, and then going to the quarterback or whatever.
Reminds me of Michael Orr in The Blind Side when he was in high school, just way above everybody else. It'd also be funny just to watch that offensive line up. Because you got to have one just huge guy, and then, a lot of high school lines have guys that are 5'11", a little squatty, but can, get low to the ground and block. So you probably have a foot difference with a couple of those guys along that offensive line. But how exciting, though, it is. I'm so glad. Last night we had Kevin Suits from 1011 Sports on air. I'm just so happy that these high school athletes are getting a chance to compete, particularly the ones that are in their senior year of high school, that they're getting a chance to go out and give it one more go before they head off to college or they go get a job or whatever they do after their high school days are over. Hopefully it can all be done safely. You got a lot of things happening at the high school level right now in the state. You've got golf's going on, softball's going on, volleyball's going on, and now football kind of getting into full swing with games tonight and tomorrow night around the league. Heck, maybe you're headed out to a game tonight right now. Maybe you're sitting in the parking lot, keep staying in the air-conditioned car for a few more minutes before you walk in and watch some high school football tonight. I still get kind of the hair on my arm stand up when I think about being at a high school game and hearing the pep bands playing and just the excitement level of that out there. It's a really cool thing. 531-500-4686. Need to slip a break in. We're back with some more of your calls and texts next. 531-500-4686. That is our Sports Nightly hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. Phone lines are open, and also the text line, that same number, open and available to you as well. Major League Baseball, a team that's really grabbed my attention and I want to keep watching are the San Diego Padres, Ben. They're playing a doubleheader today with the Mariners. In Game 1, bottom of the seventh, so the last inning of these doubleheaders this year, they give up a 4 spot in the top of the seventh, so they're down 7-3. They scored 7 runs in the bottom of the seventh with Will Myers hitting a walk-off home run to win it. They've got my attention. I kind of find them fascinating to watch.
Yeah, their games don't lack for entertainment. In fact, that whole series with the Mariners has been crazy because Game 1 to start that series, they had Paddock on the mound, who's their young stud. I mean, he's got unbelievable stuff. Last year was kind of his first year in the majors. He was on a very strict pitch count last year. I don't think he threw more than like 70 or 80 pitches in like his first bunch of starts, but he was really, really good. He has not been good this year. He's had like 2 good starts, but so he got the start against the Mariners, who offensively aren't great. Mariners are a team that hit for a lot of singles. I think they're number 1 in the majors in stolen bases, or at least they were coming into the series. They've got a couple of guys that are hitting the ball at the ballpark. Kyle Lewis, probably Rookie of the Year in the American League, and you've got Kyle Seager and Austin Nola. But other than that, it's just a bunch of fast guys putting the ball on the ground. They lit up Paddock to start the series and kind of out of nowhere. So they won Game 1. Then you mentioned Game 2. And then the second game of the doubleheader, the Mariners put up 6 in the top of the first. So it's just been a crazy series between those two. But yeah, I think Manny Machado has 3 bombs today between the 2 games. He had 2 in Game 1. He has 1 in Game 2. Fernando Tatis hit one on the roof of Petco Park in left field. You know, that little brick building they've got in left field. He went on the roof of that building. Jacob Cronenworth continues to hit the ball. I think he's up to almost 360 with his average. And they're really, really hitting the ball well. It's been an entertaining series, and you know, with all the postponements today, that was one of the few games that you can watch.
Well, and they postponed yesterday. That's what really happened is a lot of the teams that went ahead and didn't play yesterday are now playing doubleheaders today. And I do want to set the record straight. You were talking about the Mets and the commissioner, Rob Manfred. I've seen a clarification on that. It was not the commissioner's idea to wait an hour and play. It was the Mets GM, because the commissioner said, okay, if you don't want to play, how are you going to make this game up? And then the Mets GM said, well, what if we wait an hour and then come back and play at 8:40 or whatever? And the commissioner said, that's fine. I just don't know where you're going to make this game up, because the Marlins are so far behind everybody because they missed all that play. Just not sure where you're going to get that. So, Rob Manfred's not my favorite, but I do want to let him off the hook on this one, because that was not his idea. It was the GM of the Mets that came up with that idea.
Yeah, they had to put out a statement. I think it was the GM that put out the statement that said that he was sorry and didn't slander the commissioner. But that video, I mean, there was a lot of venom going to Rob Manfred in that video that surfaced a couple hours ago. And he's such an easy scapegoat right now. I mean, anything that goes wrong, it's not hard to throw him under the bus. But yeah, I did see that the GM had to put out a statement apologizing for raking Manfred over the whole coals about an hour ago.
Ben, I give him some props, because a lot of people wanted him to pull the plug on this thing 3 weeks ago. That when the Marlins and the Cardinals had their issues, a lot of people were saying, bang it, just quit it. Just stop the season. And he kept going. he persevered. He kind of said, we're going to fight through this. We knew there were going to be issues. We're going to keep playing. As long as we have a majority of our teams that are good and can play, we're going to go through that. So he kind of showed some backbone hanging in there and pushing forward with this Major League Baseball season, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. Good hour. Thanks to Nate Klaus for spending some time with us. Able to talk about something really positive, and that's the commitment of Thomas Fedoni. And how about Nate saying he thinks there's going to be some more here in the coming weeks? He really feels like there's some good momentum for Husker football. That's really good to hear. All right, next hour we'll talk some Oklahoma football, and Teddy Greenstein will join us from Chicago.
Good evening, I'm Austin Norman. We'll start the hour off with today's headlines and scores. 8 Husker football players are suing the Big Ten Conference today following the decision made on August 11th that postponed all fall sports in the conference. The lawsuit contends the decision to postpone should be overturned because the league didn't follow its established procedures in releasing information, and also because the decision was made based on misapplied medical information. According to Nebraska parents near the case, the purpose of filing the lawsuit is not to force the Big Ten to reverse its decision on fall sports, but rather to gain clarity on how that decision was reached. A day after its players went on strike, the NBA said it plans to resume its playoffs either tomorrow or Saturday, meaning the 3 games slated for today are postponed. The WNBA and NHL have also postponed their games that were planned for today. Major League Baseball scores from earlier today in Game 1 of a doubleheader. The Padres walked off the Mariners 10-7. Will Myers hit the game winner for the Friars. It took 8 innings in Game 1 of a doubleheader between the Pirates and the Cardinals, but the Bucks prevailed 4-3 in St. Louis, and the Dodgers blanked the Giants 7-0 in Game 1 of their doubleheader in San Francisco. The game that just wrapped up was the Reds beating the Brewers 6-1. That's similarly Game 1 of a doubleheader. Few games in progress right now. Game 2 between the Mariners and the Padres is slanted in Seattle's favor at 6-2. Mariners over the Padres in the top of the 5th. Also in the top of the 5th, the Pirates hold a 2-0 advantage over the Cardinals. And in the top of the 2nd inning, the Dodgers lead the Giants 1-0. BMW Championship taking place in Olympia Fields, Illinois. First round mostly complete right now. It's Tyler Duncan out in front. He's got a 1-shot lead at 2 under par. 1 under par includes a group with Mackenzie Hughes, Victor Hovland, Abraham Answer, and Hideki Matsuyama. Live inside the Husker Sports Network studios, I'm Austin Norman.
Your state, your team, your show. This is Sports Nightly.
Adrian gets the snap, holds it, looks, sets, throws, pass, caught, Wanya, first down. It's on the 20, 15, shoots a defender, 10, 5, touchdown, Nebraska. Wandale Robinson's first touchdown as a Cornhusker.
Now, let's check the pulse of Husker Nation with your hosts, Greg Sharp and Ben McLaughlin.
Here we are, Thursday night, Sports Nightly on the Husker Sports Network. Appreciate you spending part of your evening with us here tonight. The numbers, if you want to be a part of this, 531-500-4686. That's a call or a text. Either one works on that phone number. Glad to hear from you here on the show tonight. No NBA playoffs last night or today. They may get going tomorrow. I haven't heard of a final determination, but they are going to resume the playoffs. There was a time 24 hours ago where that didn't look very possible. In fact, they took a vote last night, the players-only meeting, and the Lakers and the Clippers said they weren't going to play anymore and left the meeting. Cooler heads have prevailed. And one guy, Ben, that has kind of been the go-between, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has inserted himself in this whole thing. He's the primary owner of the Charlotte Hornets and the only black majority owner in the league. He reached out. This is a Jackie McMullen ESPN report. He reached out to the NBA's association president, Chris Paul, in advance of the owners' meeting to get a better understanding of what the players hope to achieve going forward and to offer assistance as they make their case to the NBA's Board of Governors. Jordan also spoke with Russell Westbrook of the Rockets about issues. The owners held a virtual meeting Thursday morning, and 2 of the participants confirmed that Jordan, who serves as the NBA Labor Relations Committee chairman, was a voice of reason, urging the owners to allow the players to express their frustrations and concerns before offering any of their own solutions. Right now, quote from Jordan, listening is better than talking. One league official said Michael is the perfect person to be in this role. He's been a high-profile player who's won championships. He's also the owner of a small-market team. He's got a great deal of credibility with both the owners and the players. So there's Michael Jordan getting in the middle of these talks, and maybe he was part of the reason why these playoffs didn't get completely canceled and that they are going to resume sometime this weekend. Doesn't surprise me. MJ would seem like the guy that would come in and say, all right, I hear you, but here, where are we going with this thing? And let's think this thing through. Pretty positive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, look, I don't want to pretend like I know what it's like to be a black American anytime something like this happens. But just based on the reaction that I typically see on social media and videos and interviews or whatever, the emotion that typically comes out within the first 24, 48 hours whenever a situation like this happens seem to be pretty fiery, pretty emotional, as anyone with reason could expect. But I also think anytime any of us is in a situation like that where we're angry, we're frustrated, we're mad, we may act reactionary, do things that perhaps out of character, say things that we don't really believe, whatever the case may be. So it's not surprising to me that, the more conversation is had, the more time that you've had to think about a particular issue, formulate your thoughts, gather information, talk with your peers, hear the other side of it, all those types of things. I think that's when you start to hear, the voice of reason and what the best course of action may be. Because I think we can all agree that sometimes when something like this happens, or really anything to any of us that puts us in that frame of mind, our first reaction, our first behavior isn't the correct one, or isn't one that oftentimes we regret what we say and do in those moments, and the people that you talk to or the things that you say. So it's nice to have kind of these committees, these as you mentioned, the Players Association heads, just to have these conversations and to hear multiple perspectives about what truly is the best course of action. How can we drive home this message and do it the right way?
Other reports say that Chris Paul, who's the president of the NBA Players Association, and Andre Iguodala, longtime veteran who's played with numerous teams, currently with Miami, did most of the talking in the players' meeting this morning, and by all accounts did a great job with that. I'll be honest with you, Ben. I went to bed last night, and I was convinced the NBA was done, particularly after seeing what the Lakers and Clippers said, because LeBron is he's the straw that stirs the drink of the NBA right now. He is the top piece of that league right now. He's earned it with the way he's played and the lengthy career that he has had. And when he's walking out of a meeting saying we're not playing, I maybe you were different, but I went to bed going, they're done. They are done until next season. We're finished, and those buy-sell questions that we did last night aren't gonna come into play at all.
Part of me did think that, but this is so new. Like, I think you started out the show by saying that this is so unprecedented. We haven't had anything like this happen before with player-led boycotts of games, of professional and amateur sports. We just haven't seen it. So I didn't really know how to take it. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I think you made a comment earlier last hour. Are we headed to a crossroads with sports and with minority players, whether it be black, Hispanic, whatever? When it comes to time to protest, they're just not going to play and provide that entertainment. So I don't know where this is going to go. I know we have election coming up here in a few months, and maybe we start to get some clarification or direction then. But right now, it's as treacherous as it comes, and I don't know what the future of sports is while this type of behavior in a positive way is happening. Meaning, when you've got players and teams that are uniting, it's hard to say what the future looks like. And it's hard to say that if this were to happen again somewhere else, God forbid, what's next? And so I think, it started with Kaepernick, which coincidentally was 4 years ago on the day, and that just was the first snowball. Then you start to see T-shirts made. Then you start to see comments on Twitter. You see hashtags, and now you're seeing boycotts and players walk out, and it seems to be progressing to a point where none of us know where it's going to go in the future.
Yeah. No, I think that's very fair to say. It's been a double whammy. I mean, the virus plays into this too. I mean, the virus has got everybody on edge. And I made this comment last time. In the NBA's case, they're down in a bubble. They're isolated from everybody. They're down in these hotels. They're all hanging out together. They're all just having discussions amongst themselves. And I think they're kind of losing a little bit of worldview because they're all just agreeing with each other. They're not out in their communities and back doing things. That can play on your mind a little bit as well. All right, college basketball. I want to go to that next. John Rothstein, a national college basketball writer for CBS Sports, tweeted this out a couple of hours ago, Ben. Remember early in the week I quoted a piece from Matt Norlander from CBSSports.com and said that the NCAA and their vice president of basketball operations has been in communication with the conference commissioners, and they talked about 4 possible start dates for college basketball. The normal one, which would be practice starting at the end of September and the November 10th tip. Option 2 was start practice mid-October with a November 20th start. Option 3 was start November 1st with a November 25th start time, and then start mid-November with a December 4th time. John Rothstein today said sources say that the November 25th and December 4th dates have emerged as the 2 likeliest start dates to begin the 2021 college basketball season. Rothstein then later tweeted, said, these 2 dates fall into the golden window between mid-November and the start of the second semester. That's been dovetailed with a report that just came out a little bit ago that the Pac-12, which their president said they're shutting everything down until January 1. And they came out with that when the Big Ten announced the cancellation of the fall sports. The Big Ten didn't put that hang on the winter sports. The Pac-12 did. They went that extra step and said nothing until January 1. Well, this report that just came out a few moments ago, again from CBSSports.com, said there's a growing momentum that the coaches and ADs believe they can now go back to the presidents and go along with one of these plans to start the college basketball season Thanksgiving week of November 25th or December the 4th. I think it's great news. I hope that's when we get something going. It would be nice to have something going for college sports throughout the country, not just in the conferences that are continuing to play football. I would love that. Give me that November 25th date. I would be happy as a clam.
Yeah, I mean, this split with football is just, it's literally driving me up the wall. I mean, I can't stand the fact that it almost doesn't even feel like college football's happening. Right. Since we're not playing, the fact that there's a game next week doesn't really resonate with me that much. We're not covering practice. We stopped our top 25. We stopped our, around the Big Ten. We for all intents and purposes, football has shut down in our lives. And so this disconnect that I feel with football is almost unbearable. We're still trying to figure out when a season may happen. We're dealing with all the politics side of it from the figureheads of when this is going to happen. I don't care when the start date is for hoops, but can we all be on the same level? Can we all be on the same wavelength? Can we be on the same page and play in the same season? That's all I care about. If that's October 1st, fine. If that's February 1st, fine. I don't care. Just organize it together and have it be – it's not going to be as normal as it typically would, but let's make it so we're at least competing for the same championship. We're competing at the same time. And we're not having leagues one follow headlines and one follow scouting reports. Let's just be on the same page with it.
Well, this is good news. And again, the difference between college basketball and college football is that college basketball operates under the umbrella of the NCAA. There is a czar. There is a commissioner. There is a NCAA president. So they have a little bit more ability to dictate all of this throughout the country. Where college football, it's basically up to the commissioners of each league to determine what they want to do moving forward. So that's a big difference between college football and college basketball. All right, speaking of college football, we've not talked much about the Oklahoma Sooners. Ben talked about how we had to halt our preseason top 25. We hadn't gotten OU. We're going to talk some OU football next. Ryan Aber from the Oklahoman will join us. Welcome back, Sports Nightly here on the Husker Sports Network. Time to talk a little college football. You know, you remember that little game that we all love so much, but won't be able to watch any in Lincoln this year. But we're going to talk to our good friends down in Oklahoma. Ryan Aber from the Oklahoman joins us now to give us some updates on the Sooners. Hey, Ryan, how you doing? How are practices going for OU right now?
Well, right now it seems to be they're going all right. You know, they had that spate of positive COVID tests over the last couple of weeks with 9 2 weeks ago, and then a few more last week. But most of those guys are back at practice and just getting ready for the season to start here in a couple of weeks. It's weird because normally the season either would have started or would be just a few days away. Still have a couple weeks to go, but at least down here we're going to get to see some college football, it looks like.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley did say that one position group got hit hard. Did he ever reveal what group that was that got hit hard by the virus?
No, he didn't. We haven't talked to a whole lot of people since then, although yesterday we got a chance to chat with offensive line coach Bill Beatonbow, who did talk about the challenges of having multiple guys out. I'm not saying that it was the offensive line that had that spate of tests, but I know that they have had some issues with guys being out and missing practice time. And he also talked about their protocols on how to keep those guys involved after they test positive. They're still in meetings, still on Zoom calls with their positional groups, and are still able to watch practice. They have basically a live stream that they're able to see what's going on in practice, even if they can't be out there.
Again, visiting with Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman here on Sports Nightly on the Husker Sports Network. That offensive line should be terrific. Let's go to the quarterback. Who's it going to be? Is there still a battle? Has there been a starter named by the coach?
There hasn't been a starter name, but I think everybody around knows that it's going to be Spencer Rattler. It's just a matter of time. Spencer Rattler, even last year during a very limited action, only played 3 games, and it was all mop-up duty. You could see what made him so special coming out of high school. You could see what gives him the potential to be a really good quarterback, the accuracy, the poise, the arm strength, things like that, the ability to run. I think Tanner Mordecai is a guy that they feel like could be a serviceable quarterback in the Big 12 and at OU. Spencer Rattler's the guy who has the really high ceiling, who can be another of those guys to follow in the footsteps of, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts.
CeeDee Lamb was such a weapon for the Sooners offensively last year. How about that wide receiving core coming back, and what names could we hear maybe some from that group this year?
Yeah, they've lost a lot over there, and not just CeeDee Lamb, who was fantastic, but also guys like Lee Morris and Nick Basquin, who were really good role players for him. Charleston Rambo is the guy who it looks like is going to be the number 1 receiver to start the season, had a really good year last year. Outside of that, though, that group gets pretty thin as far as experience. Now, they've had some transfers in, including Theo Howard from UCLA. They feel really good about his chances to contribute. But I think the freshman from last year who came in as 5 stars, Jaden Hazelwood's hurt. No idea when he's going to be back or if he's going to be back this year. But those other 2 guys, Theo Weiss especially and Trajan Bridges, have a chance to really play some key snaps for this team and be leaned on pretty heavily at that spot.
Again, visiting with Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman. We're talking about the Oklahoma Sooners getting ready for a September 12th opener against Missouri State. Let's go to defense, Ryan. So many names back, and that group has been, it's been maligned nationally for the last couple of years. I thought they were better a year ago, and with all these guys back, I got to imagine this is going to be one of the better defenses in Norman in some time.
Yeah, you would anticipate them being significantly better. They took a big leap forward last year. When you look at third down conversion percentage, when you look at the pressure that they were able to put on quarterbacks, they were a much, much better defense. What they didn't do last year was turn people over. And 2 years ago, during the season that Mike Stoops got fired, they had the worst turnover numbers in OU history. And OU football's been going on for a long, long time. So that was pretty eye-raising. And then last year they actually did worse than that. They had a lot of opportunities, weren't able to convert them. You would figure that some of those are going to start going the other way finally. If they can turn people over and still play the level of defense that they did last year in all other areas, they have a chance to be a pretty good defense. They don't have to be a top 5 defense in order for OU to compete for national championships, as long as the offense doesn't drop off much. But they need to be a top 25 type of defense, and I think they've got at least the capability to start building that.
All right, I think the consensus is it's OU's league to win. Handicap the rest of the league for me. Who do you look at as maybe the biggest threats to the Sooners here this fall?
The one that they look at as the biggest threat is just right up the road in Stillwater. I think what Mike Gundy has coming back at Oklahoma State with Tylan Wallace at wide receiver. Obviously, he's coming off some injuries, but they've got a pretty good quarterback in Spencer Sanders, one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the country in Chuba Hubbard, and a defense that should be pretty good overall. I think that they're the most likely to compete with the Sooners. And then Texas and Iowa State have a chance to be really good. Texas with Sam Ehlinger, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think it's just a matter of, can they put everything together? You know, that question always lingers. Is Texas back? Is Texas back? It seems like they take a step forward and then take a step back the next year. We'll see if they're able to sustain success. And then Iowa State, I think, Iowa State's probably got their best team coming back in not only recent memory, but memory period. And what Matt Campbell's doing is pretty special there. So I don't think there's any doubt that OU is a very heavy favorite to win this league, and certainly a very heavy favorite to make it to the Big 12 title game. But there's some other pretty good teams in the league, and it's going to be an interesting Big 12 schedule, especially since teams are only stepping outside of the Big 12 once this year.
Yeah. Okay, $64,000 question. What's the confidence level that this season can be completed in Norman right now? Do they feel like that with the testing that they're getting done, with kind of trying to bubble teams up a little bit, that it's helping? What do you have a feel for that from the coaches and some of the players?
Yeah, I think the confidence level is getting higher recently, just because of some of the things that we've seen. And yes, OU had a little spike in numbers, but they went down last week. If that can continue, they feel pretty good about their ability to finish the season. I think especially if testing costs go way down, which, you know, there's been some talk about different kinds of tests, faster tests, cheaper tests, then it becomes much more easy to see the path. But I think certainly this next month is going to be the most critical as you get students back on campus. Your players wind up being around a lot more people. If you can find a way to keep those infections from spiking, then I think it becomes plausible, at least, to see this thing through, where a month ago, I was one of the ones who was the most pessimistic about the chance of us having a full football season.
Yeah. All right. Have they announced what kind of crowds they're going to let into the stadium, or is that still to be determined? Right
now it's 25%.
Okay.
We'll see if that changes here as we get closer to the season, but it looks like they're going to try 25%, keep groups can sit together, families that have tickets can sit together, but outside of that, they're going to have to space things out. You know, our area is going to be drastically limited as far as press. I think the media is going to be the same way, about 25% of the normal crowd. So it's going to be different. But, again, in that department, I thought a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, that I couldn't see a scenario of us having any fans in there. And now it looks like, a fairly healthy chunk of them are going to be allowed in right now unless something changes.
Are students on campus and going to class, or on campus and doing virtual, or was it a hybrid? What's happening on campus?
Yeah, there's a lot of virtual classes at OU, but there are some in-person classes as well. I think most of the football players especially are taking online classes when they can, avoiding those in-person classes when they have that ability. But, yeah, students came back a couple weeks ago. They started class on Monday this week. So it's going to be really critical, like I said, to see those numbers the next couple weeks leading up to the game. And then when they start testing 3 times a week for game week, I think we're going to start seeing, just how realistic this thing is that we can play.
Very good. Ryan, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We're kind of living through you guys right now because we don't have anything to go, so we're just going to keep following along. And I, for one, am hoping that you guys get it going and we can watch some football.
Well, hopefully so, and hopefully in the spring we'll be down here watching y'all play up there. Hopefully that'll work out as they have planned.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Ryan Abner joining us from the Oklahoman on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. This is a loaded Oklahoma team. They got 8 starters back on offense, 9 on defense. Ben mentioned it earlier that we stopped our preseason top 25. We hadn't got to Oklahoma. We got to the top 10. We hadn't got to Oklahoma yet. They definitely would have been in there. The one question is Rattler good enough at quarterback to be like Jalen Hurts, like Murray, like Mayfield? But it almost seems like it's a system-type thing with Lincoln Riley. Whoever he plugs in there, the magic falls together. I think there's a gap between Oklahoma and the rest of that league right now.
Yeah, I think so. They've proven that they're the giant. They've proven that they're the ones that should have the target on their back every year. When it comes to Rattler, this is the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country coming out of high school in Phoenix. He was a very, very highly thought of young man, as you would expect. An Oklahoma recruit to be. Very talented, very ripe, fascinated to see what type of player he becomes and, what all he can do with the Sooners. You mentioned the footsteps, the guys that he's had to follow. There's a reason why those guys are number 1 draft picks and starters in the National Football League. So, yeah, it's going to be a situation for Rattler big shoes to fill, but the system, the athletes around him, the circumstance around Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley are enough to put him in a position to be successful. So, I'm expecting big things from him.
Yeah, 10-game regular season. I think they're at least 9-1, maybe 10-0. I just don't know that anybody can athlete for athlete with them in that league right now, and I would fully expect them to be the Big 12 champions later on in the year. All right, when we come back, Teddy Greenstein of the Chicago Tribune will join us from Chicago. Welcome back, Sports Nightly, here on a Thursday night. On Thursdays, we always like to check in with our man in Chicago.
He's originally from New York, but now calls the second city his home. He prefers seeing a yellow card over an icing call. His choice in pizza is still up for debate, but his knowledge of sports spans from boxing to yachting. Here's the worldly Teddy Greenstein of the Chicago Tribune.
And we need to add to the open that he's always at a golf course. Every week he's at a golf course. You're working this one, though. This isn't for play. You're working this week, right?
Yeah, usually I'm just working on the short game, but this time I'm actually here, filling my role as a golf writer at the Tribune, and I picked this spot so your viewers can see behind me here at Olympia Fields. They have the North and the South course. The North is hosting the BMW Championship this week, and oh my God, average score 72.8, only 3 guys under par. Tough stuff.
Yeah, the players found out they weren't in Boston anymore today. Some days the golf course wins, some days the players won. Today was all about the golf course. That looked like a major course, like a U.S. Open type setup.
So, Greg, I don't know if you know the history, but it's kind of, I guess you could say, ironic. The U.S. Open was here in 2003, and it played just like a run-of-the-mill PGA Tour event. Vijay Singh shot 63. Jim Furyk set the 54-hole scoring record for the U.S. Open. Everyone was seemingly disappointed. The rough had been cut down. It was wet. The wind shifted the wrong way. The course got savaged by the media, and the members were really ticked about it. So what happens today? Now it's a regular tour event, and it plays like a U.S. Open. You got the top 69 players on the points list, and only 3 managed to break par. So it's 17 years late, but I think the members are getting a chuckle tonight.
Very good. Okay, no fans. How bizarre was that, being there covering an event with no fans?
So the weird part is, I was by the 10th tee for much of the morning. It just happened to be Tiger was teeing off there, Cameron Champ was teeing off there, Dustin Johnson. And I thought maybe they were going to go through, the normal introductions of, 15-time major winner, and he's won this many Western Opens and BMW championships. But no, the starter who I talked to, I'm going to be writing about him tomorrow, he was basically just like, now on the tee, Tiger Woods. And not even the volunteers were cheering. I mean, it was dead silence. All you could hear is like the electric golf carts riding by. I mean, it's absolutely bizarre that these guys are being introduced and not even the volunteers are giving them a golf clap.
Teddy, was there any talk of cancellation today on the PGA Tour? We've seen a lot of events around the pro sports taking a day off. Protests that started with the NBA. Was there any of that shattered today on the PGA?
I would say there was really none. I was able to ask Tiger Woods about it afterwards. Tony Finau, who's of Samoan descent, was asked about it, and Cameron Champ. I asked Tiger the question, and even though I knew it was kind of the most ridiculous one of all time, you think Tiger Woods considered not playing in today's event because of what the NBA and MLB and soccer did? Of course not. Now, Tony Finau, he gave some great answers about why he also didn't really consider not playing. And the PGA Tour, to its credit, came out with a solid statement this morning saying they would support, any actions by their players. Now, I don't know if you've heard about what Cameron Champ did. So, he's very light-skinned, but he's biracial. His father is African-American. And he came out and wore one white Nike golf shoe and one black shoe. And he scrawled on there, Breonna Taylor, BLM. So he said he actually did contemplate not playing, but felt he could, I think, have more impact playing and speaking forcefully on the issue. So he's one to watch. As you know, he might be the second longest player on the PGA Tour after Bryson DeChambeau. He's an emerging star. He's won a couple times and spoke very eloquently on the subject afterwards.
Teddy Greenstein with us from the Chicago Tribune. He's covering the BMW Championship Week 2 of the FedEx Cup playoffs there in Chicago. The other big golf story of the week, Teddy, was Phil Mickelson. He made his debut on the Champions Tour on a course that, I almost got in my car to drive down to. That course looks beautiful in the Ozarks. Totally. And he ran away with the thing, and it looked like he had a good time playing golf for the first time in a while.
Did you see the one that he chipped off, like the kind of almost like the wood paneling? It was looked like about 8 or 10 feet above a green. That was fascinating. Phil, the greatest break of his life was not being in the top 70 in FedEx Cup points. If he'd come here today and even played well, he would have shot 73 or 74. Instead, he goes down there, shoots 61. I think he drove a green that was like 365 yards or something. It looked like he had a great time. He was wearing those shades, super relaxed, and just blitzed that golf course and just reminded everybody how awesome he is. So much more fun to finish first in a Champions Tour event than finish, 43rd out here where it's 99 degrees.
Yeah, you're going to get cooler weather before the week's over. He talked about how it's a much more relaxed feeling on the Champions Tour, and you've covered Champions events as well. Is that accurate, that it's just a lot more relaxing than the regular tour?
1,000%, Greg. They've basically made their money. There are no cuts. I don't think, maybe only for senior majors. It's only 3 rounds. They all get it. It's just gravy. I think a lot of those guys are like, I can't believe they're still paying me to come out here and make birdies on easier golf courses. And it's a great vibe on that tour. It's nice when Fred Couples plays it. He certainly fits. But hopefully we'll see Phil on the Big Boy Tour again soon.
Well, one guy that's going to get paid is Lucas Giolito, the White Sox pitcher who threw a no-hitter the other night. What do you know about that guy?
Greg, I covered him a bunch in 2018 when, as you probably know, he was essentially the worst pitcher in the American League. His ERA was maybe 6.18, 6.23. Led the league, I believe, in walks. And at that point, it was like, wow, this is a former first-rounder, a guy who looks like this is what you mold a starting pitcher at. He's so long, he's tall, he's broad-shouldered, really smart, interesting guy from Southern California. His parents have a background in the arts and entertainment. Love talking to him, but he got his butt kicked in 2018. Last year he comes out and he's the best pitcher on the staff and makes the All-Star team, and now he throws a no-hitter. So he is maybe he and Tim Anderson are the guys on the White Sox who I would pull for the hardest.
And they're making you look good. They made a big push here in the last 2 weeks. That's going to be a heck of a pennant race I think they're going to be in September.
I mean, Chicago is desperate for both teams to make the playoffs, as am I, because as you might have heard, there's no Big Ten football to cover. So I'm definitely hoping to cover some MLB playoffs. And, right, the Cubs got off to a great start. Then the Cardinals cooled them off. The White Sox have been rallying. You asked me before the season who would have a better record. I picked the White Sox, and they still got a good, healthy chance.
Teddy, I got a feeling Notre Dame will let you come to their games.
Seriously, are they going to happen? I mean, it's going to be interesting. They theoretically open September 12th against Duke. And, look, Notre Dame, obviously they had a COVID spike on their campus, but these schools seem determined, absolutely determined to keep it going. And the intriguing question is, do the spikes on campus actually help the chances of the football team? Because if Notre Dame were to send all of its students home, then they would have a bubble on campus with the football players. Now, would the administration go for that if there are no live classes? I think at this point they probably would. So Notre Dame could be really the tipping point for all this, because if Notre Dame doesn't play, maybe the ACC falls apart. But if Notre Dame says, we're doing this, it seems like the ACC says, great. And then if the ACC plays, more likely that the SEC and Big 12 does as well.
Yeah. All right, get out of those cicadas out there and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Enjoyed it, Greg. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Teddy. Teddy Greenstein with the Chicago Tribune with us on our Sports Sunday Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. All right, phone lines are open, 531-500-4686, the number if you want to dot us up with a comment or question, or send us a text on our U.S. Cellular text line. U.S. Cellular, the official wireless provider of Husker Athletics. Ben will rejoin me next. 531-500-4686. That's the number if you want to be a part of the program tonight, either with a call or a text. On our text line, have you guys heard anything about the football team getting more time for practices? Right now it's 12 hours. Bill Moose, who we had on a couple nights ago, did say, I think the Big Ten's going to make a push to the NCAA to push it up to 20 hours a week, just because that's what the leagues that are playing are going to have, and maybe you kind of turn the fall into a spring. But right now they're operating under the 12 hours of a limit to be around the coaches, and they did start that back up this week at the football stadium. So, and that would go for all fall sports. That would include volleyball and women's soccer as well. Not a lot of baseball today. A lot of teams took the day off to jump in line with the social injustice theme that the NBA started last night when the Milwaukee Bucks did not go out and warm up. They let the Orlando Magic warm up. The Magic are out there warming up and no team on the other end of the floor, and then everybody decided to walk away from it. You had about a handful of Major League teams that did not play last night, and they're all doubling up and playing doubleheaders today. You have a lot of games that have been canceled for today, but I'm guessing that's it for baseball. I would think they'd be back to normal tomorrow. We'll see. It's hard to predict this stuff from day to day moving forward. Teddy with a nice little story about Lucas Giolito. I know he covered quite a bit of White Sox a couple years ago, and that was the year that Giolito got lit pretty good, Ben, on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, a couple of years ago he did not perform overly well, but you always knew that he had the potential to blossom into a very good player, and that's exactly what happened. Last year he seemed to turn a corner, and obviously this year he's had a couple of starts that weren't very good, I think 2, but the rest of them have just been dominant, including the one this week against the Pirates, 13 strikeouts and a no-hitter. Not a bad effort.
Going to be a good race in the Central. Who you picking? You staying with the Twins? I think we all picked the Twins a month ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either.
I mean, the Indian situation, I think, is just such a precarious one. I mean, obviously, Clevenger pitching or scheduled to pitch, I guess, with the postponements is a sign in the right direction. You just weren't sure if Cleveland could muster, the pitching staff. But the big question about Cleveland has been their offense. Their offense has been atrocious. They've got great bats in there. They've just all been slow going. And haven't been going at the same time. You've seen their potential, but the Twins are kind of with their own issues right now. They've got a mixture of injuries. Mitch Garver on the IL, Byron Buxton, who was on a tear there for a while, on the IL. Max Kepler fouled the ball off his foot. I mean, if the White Sox had a little more starting pitching depth, I'd probably give them the edge, but I'm still sticking with Minnesota right now, but I think that's going to be a fun race at the end.
I might lean the White Sox a little bit right now. I think they might be a little bit more well-rounded, and you documented the injuries that the Twins have. That's going to be tough to overcome. I don't think those two have played much yet. I don't have that schedule in front of me, so they may play a bunch here. And the Royals are done with the Twins. They played all 10 of their games with the Twins in about a 3-week span, but I don't think the White Sox and the Twins have played much yet, which should set up some really interesting matchups in September. As we now turn the corner, a lot of teams have now played Game 30, so they're halfway through the abbreviated season. We're a little bit more than halfway through tonight here on Sports Island. 1 hour. Great to hear from Teddy. Also good to hear from Ryan Aber from the Oklahoman, breaking down the Oklahoma Sooners, who are 2 weeks out from their opening game of the year. Next hour, we'll have our face-off and our flicks picks of the week. Looking forward to that. Come on back.